We're going over System Concepts, Article 36, Egoism in the Work, Part 7. We are in the final phases before the barrier. All the work invested before begins to manifest in a substantial increase of our egoism. Our immature understanding of egoism is in thinking that someone with an exaggerated external manifestation has a big ego. However, in reality, their egoism is very small. The only way to grow our ego in quality is to direct it inwards. We need to behave externally like any other person in the world. However, internally, we need to intensify our desire towards the goal of receiving the quality of bestowal, internal power. Doubt desires. When we enter the individual phase, we feel a loss of anticipation we had previously experienced. We feel disoriented like in any root phase. However, now that our egoism is growing internally, we start to receive doubts about the validity of the path. These are great signs of advancement. And here's a quote. It turns out that the descents, which are the times of separation, produce the importance of adhesion in the ascents, while the ascents make him hate the descents that the separation causes him. In other words, he cannot assess how bad the descents are when one speaks slander about providence and does not even feel whom he slanders, to know that he must repent for such a sin. This is called slandering against the Creator. Thus, it follows that precisely when one has both forms, can he discern the distance between one and the other, as far as light excelleth darkness. Only then can one assess and regard the matter of adhesion, by which the delight and pleasure in the thought of creation can be acquired, being his desire to do good to his creations. Everything that appears to our eyes is but what the Creator wants us to attain the way we do, since they are ways by which to achieve the complete goal. Yet it is not so simple to acquire adhesion with the Creator. It requires great effort and exertion to acquire the sensation and feeling of delight and pleasure. Before that, one must justify providence, believe it above reason that the Creator behaves in goodness with the creatures, and say, they have eyes and see not. From the article number 34, The Prophet of the Land, from the book Shamati by Bala Sulam. The solution is not to ignore these doubts and frustrations. We should use them to propel ourselves forward, using our environment as much as possible. We have the friends in the group for general cleansing of concepts. We are also assigned an individual friend to work with on a more intense, intimate level. Answers should be found through the environment to convince our egoism to continue supporting our endeavor. We continue to collect discernments on the validity of the path. The importance of the reward should not be discarded, but rather put center stage. This is because the future tracks us to evolve. The past can only push us so far. These desires for deep scrutinies on the path are called doubt desires. They are considered the unformed desires of the individual, phase 4.1. Responsibility desires. When we have successfully convinced our egoism that our advancement is beneficial, we advance to the next phase. We need to start internalizing the whole world within. This means to systematically start taking responsibility for all manifestations that appear outside of us. Everything that we sense is a consequence of our subconscious. We are preparing in potential our playground for manipulation. We can only sense egoism in ourselves and others before the barrier. However, even though it may seem as if others have free will, we already understand that that is not the case. We need to start sensing how everyone in reality are just puppets expressing our inner desires. And here's a quote. Item 50. Thus we find that not all desires are regarded as vessels of reception, but only Bechinat Daled, fourth phase. That is because the Ratzon, desire, is not regarded as reception, except under the two conditions, Efshar, possible, and Kam Kaven, with intent. This means that there should not be a coerced reception, and that a yearning to receive will appear there. However, since there is a yearning to receive in Bechinat Gimel, third phase, meaning Kam Kaven, with intent, because the reception is a must, being that it is a must sustenance, it is not regarded as a kli, vessel for reception. Bechinat Bet, phase 2, does not have to receive. However, because there is no yearning there, she is not regarded as a kli, vessel for reception. All the more so with Bechinat Aleph, first phase, who has neither. She must receive her aura light, For it is her sustenance, and at the same time she has no yearning for it. Thus it is certainly completely frail ratzon, desire. Thus it is certainly completely frail ratzon, desire. From Inner Reflection, from Talmudist Sfirot, Part 2, by Balasunam. This is where we own the entire will to receive, egoism. Every person should feel the same ownership, as if they are the only person who actually exists. This is called inclusive symbiotic power. We convince others that they have control over us, while understanding that we actually have control over them. The increase of the illusion of control generates more desire for us to receive the quality of bestowal, control. These desires for owning the manifestation of our experiences are called responsibility desires. They're considered the chaotic desires of the individual, phase 4.2. And here's the first workshop question. What doubts do we experience on the path? Cedric.
Well, perhaps knowing if this path is the right one, or if it's the one that I should follow, or if it has benefits or not. I think that's it.
Jenny.
We begin to doubt our own thoughts and feelings and our perceptions, not only whether or not the path is true or real, but whether or not we've actually experienced anything. Thanks.
Caesar.
Okay. So when you go through the sense and we kind of lose the ground, the faith, the path, the method, and start thinking, oh, it's some kind of illusion that we are playing games with your mind, and that's a kind of doubt, And if you don't have the strong foundation and focus in the goal, we can easily go close yourself in a shell, So until you realize it's just a part of a growing perception. So soon you realize, so we can come back and even stronger to the environment and the teacher, the friends, and to the story.
Maria.
It seems that before one goes through to another phase, it's kind of like the total opposite of what the previous phase was, and it's I think that the doubts arise because our sense of attachment, our sense of self is so into the current one, and it's so drastically different that it presents a doubt. It presents like, is that valid? Is that we're scrutinizing whether that jump is in true what needs to happen, because it's totally opposite to what it feels at a previous phase. I'm thinking about phase 1, even when this concept of Kabbalah was introduced. Those things that I had to sort of let go of, that sense of self-attachment, and go and venture on this new thing and test it and see the validity. But I think these doubts arise in order to build on the next phase, and also to we're measuring the validity of this new phase that's coming in.
Moshe.
Well, the doubts come in, and specifically the doubts of is this really meant for me? Am I really meant to pass the barrier? Do I really feel this responsibility? I think it's more of like a shock a little bit, of like a big sense of responsibility that you're sort of in control of everything, and then the doubts come in as if you really, really even want it in the first place. And of course you doubt the method, but I would say it's more of doubting yourself. So yeah.
Rick.
There are many doubts all along the path, from the first phase all the way to where I am anyway in phase 4, but it is dealing with ourselves, what we believe. It's finding that what we think and construct our reality of is not necessarily what reality truly is. And it's finding the truth between what we believe reality is and what it truly is. Thank you.
Robin.
Well, the change, I think, is so drastic. You find yourself in a different place, different forces are going on that you haven't experienced before. So there are doubts. There are true doubts about whether this is right, whether it's going to work. There are doubts about if you can do it. You're very disoriented, and so there are doubts about the whole process. But if you just hang on and keep the goal in mind, the doubts get into line, and you get answers, and you can go forward.
The doubts that we experience are because we're growing our ego, because our egoism starts to grow, and we have that increased coarseness that starts to weigh us down. And suddenly, if before we're like, oh, of course I want to cross the barrier, then suddenly it starts to pull us down and start, do I actually want to cross the barrier? Why do I want to cross the barrier? Is this really the way to cross the barrier? And all these thoughts come in, and the idea is that we're meant to, the idea that these thoughts were always in us, but now they're being exposed, and now we have to actually deal with them. Second question, how do we take responsibility over our lives? Cedric.
We'll have to be certain that continuing in the path is good for us now and in the long term, and that we should take responsibility for what happens around us, because as hard as it may look like, it's all what happens around us is manifestations of ourselves in the outside.
Caesar. Caesar, you're muted.
Okay. Realizing that you are the only one that you're attracting the light, the reality, and you're also the only one that can make the details even more clear, because you are the active part of the system. So if you don't know your true place in the system, which means knows yourself from inside out, you not be able to take any responsibility to your life. Thanks.
Jenny.
So we've, first, number one, have to acknowledge that it is our responsibility, that everything outside of us does originate from within us at our level of correction or that lack thereof. So once we've accepted that we have that responsibility, that we're required to clean our concepts, we then can, number one, hang on, and we hang on by our friends, the people in the group, those others that are the same like-minded, because with our skewed perception and the being pelted by the doubts, with every new level of coarseness, we share what we're experiencing, and through that sharing, we're able to then hear from those that are also on the same path, their perceptions. Again, it's our perception, but they help us clean what's skewed in us, what's the misperception. So that's how we're able to take responsibility, by working with the environment, with using those around us.
Maria.
I think that ego is growing, well, it already was that size and the big size that it is. It was just concealed. It was just, the more that it's revealed or uncovered, we begin to sense this bigger picture. And one has to be responsible. It's actually painful because, we may have been for a long time in this comfort blanket of having the justification of blaming somebody else for everything, somebody else, some idol worshiping, right? Blaming, being the victim. And that was a comfort, a painful comfortness that we would have to face. And also removing the excuse that, oh, well, the creator willed it. Oh, well, no, this responsibility is actually uncovering it and saying, nope, you're the cause of how skewed your perception is. It's because it's your immaturity that's sensing, having this current perception. So we have to clean our concepts. We have to get to the point that we actually look at everything, and although we cannot yet affect it, that's going to be, we know that that's going to be in the future, but nonetheless, we're going to have to remove any form of trying to blame or attribute it to something else other than oneself.
Moshe.
Well, I would say the whole goal is to know yourself better, and the more you know yourself better, the more you can accept the reality that's presented in front of you. And I would say, just to continue, of course, we may not want or have certain desires, and that's kind of where the environment can influence us. And it's about using the environment to build desires and to let it influence you. And at the end of the day, by doing so, you learn more about yourself and can start changing your internality and being more responsible for your externality.
Rick.
We start to take on these responsibilities when we start to realize that when we look around us, everything we see manifested before us is our internality. It's showing us pieces and parts of ourselves and how we're reacting and interacting with the system. By taking on all these aspects and accepting the responsibility for them, we start to gain control and become aware of who we are in this internality. And this is what brings us into alignment with the system.
Robin.
It's about perception, and at this stage, your perception has to get cleaner, and you have to take responsibility for everything in your life. You have to see that you are responsible and have been responsible for many things that you may have shucked off or somehow cloaked in, it's someone else's responsibility or someone else's fault that you did certain things or felt certain things or whatever. You need to clean your perception, and you do this by learning that you are responsible for everything in your life, and that you're manifesting your own reality, and you've got to do that to clean your perception.
Taking responsibility doesn't, it's about potential before the barrier. So it's not like, oh, if I'm responsible, then I have to stop things happening. It is to understand your battlefield, to understand your playground, to understand the area you're going to be working on, to understand that everything that is happening is manifesting through you. So it doesn't mean that immediately, if all the bad things are manifesting through me, I should stop them immediately. It's like, no, it's about accepting it. It's about understanding the system that designed you that way, that everything manifests through you, and it's understanding that you're that pipeline, that everything you see outside of you is actually manifesting through your desires. And the reason why that's important is because what we're basically doing after the barrier is going to be slowly not only having more awareness of how it manifests through us, that actually start to manipulate it and allow to slowly change the outcomes of those manifestations. The third question, what is the work with the individual? Cedric.
I would say, first of all, control, and later bestowal.
Caesar.
Learn how you can learn how to be vulnerable and humble, and at the same time you gotta be very egoistic too, because we are doing it to take advantage of our situation to advance.
Jenny.
It's an interplay of two parts. Again, you're going to be vulnerable. You're willing to be vulnerable. Much more intimate details are revealed between the two. Much more intimate experiences are discussed in the effort to clean concepts, in the effort to and even if you're not able to completely 100% comprehend the readings or the writings together, the actual work of working on them together, the effort of hearing each other, mirroring each other, and the willingness to almost make a pact that, yes, we're going to experience some dramatic highs, some dramatic lows, but it's all in the effort for one thing, and that's to get to the final goal of correction, of final correction. And that's the only reason why we're here, not to support you in your efforts for your corporeal world, but it's strictly everything that we're experiencing together is for the goal of raising your level of coarseness, cleaning the concepts, and constantly being just working for yourself. You're working for yourself, not for the individual. You're working for yourself, but in the long run, you're both benefiting.
Maria.
Yes, I would describe it as a covenant where you both are agreeing that one, you're making yourself more vulnerable because you're basically going to be emotionally naked. They're gonna see you as you are, but the agreement already is, we're helping each other towards the goal. That's it. It's not as a judgment. You're like this, you're like that. No, it's strictly we are agreeing that we are going to help each other. Because once you're doing individual work, each of us has our own specific pain point areas that really target us, and the other person currently maybe have a much more objective view when one is in an ascent or in a descent, and vice versa. So it is actually making oneself vulnerable, but with a specific purpose, of only helping each other advance towards the goal.
Moshe.
Well, the individual is meant to show you another side of yourself. He's meant to be as support as well. It's just another way to expand your perception. And when you work with somebody in an intense base, on an intense sort of way, it's important to be vulnerable to that person as well, to allow him to tell you things about yourself that you wouldn't normally see, and obviously do the same for him. And but again, by sort of being honest with yourself, you have a better success rate in actually advancing, because it's all about being honest with yourself and learning and growing from everything.
Rick?
It's an opening up and being vulnerable, intimate, sharing the things that you would not share within the group, or even though the group is, a group of great friends like this. There's times that you wouldn't share it all with everyone, but if you had one good individual in that group, then you would be able to reach in and give this part of yourself out so that you become more aware. You can have a different perspective of it. It can help you clean the concepts, and that's why you need the individual to get to this point. Thank you.
Robin?
The work with the individual is to, since the goal is so, the purpose, and it's pure, you create a pure environment with the individual, and where you are intimate, you share discernments, you read articles and truly respond with how you understand, how you feel, and you clean concepts about things. You do share your emotional states, your frustrations, your experiences, your desires, and so it's a very pure environment and in which to work, and you can't do it in any other way, I don't think.
I like with the group where the discernments and the concepts which are cleaned are more general. They apply to all the members in the group. And even the experience talked about, there's there's less details given to them. With the individual, you can actually share the personal details of the problem you're having, whether it's with your spouse or with your job. With the individual, you share more of that intimate relationship of sharing personal information with each other. So, of course, you have to trust that individual you're working with. While with the group, it's more of a general information, things that you could talk about which aren't sort of personal identifying to you. And the reason why it's important is because what the individual can do, it can calibrate you even more to the path. So with a group, which can clean the general concepts, the individual can work on the specific concepts that you're applying on your day-to-day basis that are stopping you from advancing. What do you think of the article?
I think that I liked the fact that it's okay to have doubts on the path, because sometimes they come and it's hard to stay on the path and say this is going to be good for you, just keep on going, because there's like a force that wants to keep you on one hand wants to keep you away from the path, and another stubborn that says no, this is good for you. So I think that the not knowing that having doubts is part of the process, I think it's good.
I also think that having the doubts is an indication that you are progressing. Without the doubts, you're probably potentially in a shell, or which is where there's a ton of doubts, but still you aren't potentially doing the efforts that you need to be doing. So it's an indicator.
I would also like to add in regards to the individual work, that doubts happen as well internally. And from in my experience, whenever we were discussing a situation, I always my individual was really good, is really good at like giving me that, what if it's this, what if it's this, just like that. And when internally my calculator, I had to really trust my pain calculator, because through one's class type, sometimes the doubts happen, or these pains happen because we really don't want to see the truth of well, am I really doing this here wrong and so forth. So having this pain calculator tell me that it's that maybe that was the problem was an indicator, because sometimes I could say, oh no, I really don't sense pain any there, so I don't think that's the issue. But internally trying to scrutinize, like, again, this is not easy work, right? But the individual plays such a key role in actually showing you, and again, because we're not judging, we're just trying to help each other out, giving you that view that sometimes you yourself may not want to see. And I just think that that's just invaluable. It's very, very helpful. I'm very grateful for my individual. That's what I'm saying.
And I think the doubts have to come out because they'll hold you back. They're impure, and they're as far as your perception goes. And it's natural. Everybody will have doubts. There's no question, because the perception has not been cleaned yet, and it's part of cleaning the perception. I guess I said that earlier, but that's how I'm seeing it today.
And to me, it's about the responsibility, and it has to do with how you internalize or not the whole world witnessing, So if you take a responsibility for how you see what's outside of you, it has to do with how you internalize the world with.
All of it was good. Everything from the doubts to the individual work to taking responsibility for what we manifest.
The doubts are definitely crucial, and the defining factor, whether you'll fall into a shell from those doubts or whether you'll advance, is the way you relate to those doubts. The idea is to relate to those doubts as symptoms and not the problem. They're symptoms to show you where the problem is. The problem is in your perception, and the doubts that are raised to your consciousness are symptoms to allow you to identify what is actually blocking you. So the idea is to use them just like if you're sick and you have a symptom, then you can know what you actually have. The symptoms are to identify the root problem, the root cause. So it's the same thing with the doubts. The doubts are external to your perception. They're external in the sense of that they identify or help you identify what concepts need to be cleaned, and they're vital for the advancement. In fact, when you get to 4.1, which is the doubts, that is a great sign. It means that your ego is growing, and you actually want answers. And you want answers, not just like general answers. You want answers that you'll internalize those answers, so you can actually make this method your own. Like, as long as you're complaining about the method as sort of there's something wrong with the method, that means that the method is still external to you. And the idea is to make the method your own, and then any criticism you have on the method is sort of criticism on your own method that you've internalized. It becomes your method, not somebody else's method. I think we'll stop here and enter the after party.